and there has been just serious video to come out in terms of the damage that we have seen. One of those people who has seen the damage herself very close up is Australian TV host Erin Molan, who is joining us right now from Israel, who is visiting Israel right now. Erin, thank you so much for being with us. Tell me where you're located exactly.
Thank you so much for having me, and I apologize for my lack of professionalism with clothing, etc. It's something I did not plan for, to still be in this country and for it to be a war zone. But I went today to the site of one of the biggest missile hits just outside of Tel Aviv, and the destruction, the level, the extent of damage, unlike anything I've ever seen before. And I make the point, you look at the way that Israel conducts itself, the IDF, when it comes to eliminating terror targets, the precision in which they strike. And this is not so that they can be cool and Hollywood heroes. It's so they can minimize civilian casualties. You look at the complete opposite when it comes to Iran in their retaliation. They don't care. They target civilians. People died at that site. It was an apartment block. Cars were upside down on top of other cars. It was unlike anything I'd ever seen, like an apocalypse almost. We're expected to have even more intense bombing tonight, which is obviously not ideal. I just heard you talking to Emily, who's doing a fantastic job. But I think I pray for everyone here in Israel. Stay close to bomb shelters, because I think it's going to be a pretty tough night for everyone.
Yeah, you mentioned just describing what you saw today at one of those sites. When I was there, you see an actual flipped car. It's insane that the power, the intensity of this strike managed to literally flip a car on top of itself. I couldn't even believe that. And just the widespread damage on the streets beyond the actual hard-hit neighborhood, you just see as you walk up, little by little, it gets worse and worse and worse, and you probably noticed that as well. Tell us what the reason for your visit, for your trip was. You know, you are someone that is very pro-Israel. You have made it very clear about deciphering in the media what Hamas does, what they try to do in terms of the war inside of Gaza. But tell us just kind of the purpose of your trip right now. And like you said, you are not assuming and you are not predicting to be in a brand new front of war here.
Absolutely. I was here to receive an honorary doctorate, which was an incredible privilege and something, that I'm very, very honored to receive. But I also acknowledge very readily that it is utterly ridiculous that your country should have to acknowledge me because I tell the truth. It should be mainstream. What I do should be the absolute norm. So I was here for one night. I was 11-year-old back into Australia. Unfortunately, that did not occur. But you say, I stand with Israel and I support Israel. It's not complex to me. There is no grey here. It is not blurry. It is good versus evil. And because I care deeply about innocent children in Gaza, I stand with Israel, the only country in the world currently trying to eliminate their enemy, which is Hamas. These attacks on Iran, these are historic. This is something that could not have been delayed any further. And when you look at what they were planning to do, this regime, which is responsible for so much death and destruction across the globe, particularly aimed at Israel, but certainly not ending there, what your nation is doing on behalf of the rest of the Western world who believes in freedom, peace, democracy, all of the things that I value as an Australian, as a mother, as someone who wants to bring her daughter up in a world that also values those exact same things. I am so proud to stand with your country, and I'm so proud to defend a people who is willing to put everything on the line, not just for themselves, to protect themselves. And it is Israel's duty to protect itself, not its right. It has an obligation to protect itself on behalf of the rest of the West, most of whom do not understand the threat or what is at stake here. I thank you, and I stand proudly alongside you.
Right, in terms of the terror proxies that Iran has funded for decades that surround Israel, we talk about the Houthis, we talk about Hamas, Hezbollah. Remember, this is direct funding ideas that stem from Iran. We had Defense Minister Katz saying yesterday that they are targeting the head of the snake because of the involvement in these groups. The indirect attacks that Iran has pretty much had on Israel for quite some time. Can you explain a little bit more about what you have learned in terms of that and the difference in strikes that Israel has conducted inside of Iran versus the strikes that Iran has conducted inside of Israel? We know civilians are directly targeted in Israel, but according to Israel, they have directly targeted nuclear facilities and not necessarily residential homes.
You're exactly right. And all you need to do is look at the imagery that is coming out of Iran when it comes to the success of Israeli strikes. You look at a building, a massive multi story building, there is one hole in the wall which took out a commander. One hole in a wall of a massive building. That is what Israel does. That is what the IDF does. It targets evil and it does every single thing in its power to minimize the damage done to those around it. The complete opposite. This bomb, this missile from Iran, hit right in the epicenter of a massive civilian population, apartment buildings. You should have seen as I looked around and walked around and touched and felt and looked at cars, looked at windows that were blown to smithereens. You could see children's toys hanging out of the window. This is the difference. Even from such a basic perspective, if you look at those two things, Israel, the IDF, targets nuclear facilities, military infrastructure, nuclear scientists, commanders. This is what Israel does. It targets the evil people, not anyone else. And we know that the vast majority of Iranians are good, decent people who do not like that regime. They do not support that regime. You then look at the opposite. From Iran back into Israel, there is absolutely no precision in any attack that they carry out. They just want to kill. They want mass destruction. They want innocent people to die. They want their own people to die. They don't care about their own people dying. In fact, they kill their own people. So why would they care about killing Israelis or killing other Westerners? They don't. You know, even if you're confused by this, if you can't determine a level of moral clarity, just look at the two stark examples of who the IDF targets and who Iran targets. And that should tell you everything you need to know about who is on the side of good and who is on the side of evil.
Yeah, Erin, I think a lot of people have been very motivated by your own personal story, of taking a stance as a journalist, of what is fact and what is actually fiction that's in the media and that is published. Talk a little bit about, what your background is in terms of that and kind of your experiences coming to Israel, what you have learned, and actually specifically what you've learned from this attack. This is the first time I believe that you're in Israel under fire from the Iranian regime. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Yes, and I guess story, a big part of my story is my dad, who was an incredible human being, and any bit of courage, moral clarity, any bit of bravado that I have or show is due almost entirely to him. He was a major general in the Australian Army. He ran the war in Iraq for a year, commanded the U.S. forces. He was chief of operations there, and he was an incredible supporter of Israel. He stood so strongly and staunchly for everything that they did. And I would watch him as a young person, and I would look up to him and think he was just the most incredible man. We lost him a couple of years ago to cancer, unfortunately. We could have really used him now. But he, in fact, went to Israel in 2014 to investigate a conflict because, of course, that's what we do to our allies. We go and investigate. We wouldn't do it to the terrorists, of course. That's ridiculous. I'm being sarcastic, of course. But the headline after his investigation with the US general and with a British general was, "They put us to shame." This is after having run the war in Iraq on behalf of the US forces. "They put us to shame in how they conduct warfare." And that to me says everything, because I know the kind of man he was. And even back then, he knew straight away what Israel stood for, how they fought wars. And for me, it wasn't even a choice after October 7. I had no idea that I would come out very publicly in support of victims of terror and staunchly condemn those who carried out those atrocities, and that it would somehow be considered controversial, or that I would be in the minority. I would have said, "You are dreaming, there is no chance." But here we are. It terrifies me. I think it wasn't so much the atrocities of that day or what we're seeing now in terms of these evil acts of violence. Dad fought ISIS, Dad fought Al Qaeda. I have seen brutality. What terrified me and was the signal to me that this is a fight that is existential, that I cannot stop fighting this, was a reaction of the world. And not just this small little part of the world that jumps onto anything and that, you can put away and say, okay, they make no impact. But world leaders who all of a sudden, after the greatest loss of Jewish life since the Holocaust, suddenly started to act as though Israel were the aggressors, and Hamas were the victims. And that to me terrified me. I'm a mom, I've got a 7-year old. I can't live in a world that is that upside down, because it's not coming. The threat of this is not coming. It's here right now. And it's not just here in the Middle East, it's here in the US, it's in the UK, it's in Europe, it's in my country, it's in Australia. And unless people speak up, unless people are brave enough to call it out, then we are stuffed. And I don't want that. I'm not ready to give up on the kind of world that my daughter exists, and that everyone who's watching, their kids deserve to have.
Erin, thanks so much for sharing just the personal connection that ties you to standing up for the truth, and especially when it comes to the Middle East and just your level of understanding of the conflict. I want to just give a quick update to our viewers and to you right now. Iran State TV is now saying heavy and destructive attacks by Iran against Israel are expected within the next few hours. Tell us, for you, where will you be? How have you taken these attacks? Were you in shock when these first started just 24 hours ago? The first ballistic missile attack was actually launched at Israel. Talk to me about your experience through all of this.
Yeah, it's look, I'm not going to lie. It's I'm not Israeli. I'm not Jewish. This is a very foreign feeling for me. It's I look at the brave soldiers who are on the front line. I look at people who live through this day in, day night, and I cannot for a second uh, look for empathy from anyone. But I've got to tell you, it's quite disconcerting. It's nerve wracking. I think for the first time tonight, looking at all the reports coming in, I've got some fairly good contacts in some fairly good places who are saying that tonight is going to be pretty horrendous. And having visited the site
Okay,
today and
we're
watching
putting BB on next, right?
exactly where this missile impacted, this 600 or 700 kilogram warhead hit innocent civilians. Uh, it's really nerve wracking. And I guess, same as every single person here, and I'm speaking to so many different people. I'm in a hotel, the hotel that I stayed at when I went and did the event yesterday. And people are worried for their children, they're worried for their friends, their family. I think, it's nerve wracking. It's utterly terrifying, but I don't for a second regret coming. I don't for a second wish that Israel had not done this, even though I'm now stuck in a war zone. I'm away from my child, and obviously everyone here is in a lot of danger. I don't wish for a second that they hadn't done it, because it needed to be done. It had to be done. And this is the price that you pay, but no one else was going to do it. So, what can I say?
Erin Molan, thank you so much for joining us today. Be safe and take care of yourself.
Thank you. Take care, everyone. Thank you.